SPF stands for specific pathogen-free pigs. Pigs that are free of a range of pathogenic microorganisms. The Danish SPF system was established in 1971, and its stringent rules governing disease prevention, health control, and the transport of pigs between herds makes it one of the most exceptional production and health systems in the world. This sign represents high quality. For that reason, we expect only the best from our pig breeders, and from you. As an employee working in an SPF herd, you help to maintain the high standard. It is a responsible job which you can be proud of. But it is also important you have all the information you need to do the job properly. This is why the Danish Agriculture and Food Council have made this informational film, which explains the rules and regulations a SPF herd must comply with. But let us start with a little about the general requirements of a SPF herd. In this film you will meet Anna. She is newly employed at Gamborg, a large farm consisting of 4 properties with SPF joint herds. She is being trained by Peter, the works manager at Gamborg. In the following section, Anna and Peter will demonstrate the most important rules that you must follow when you work in an SPF herd. Basically, there are 2 kinds of SPF herd, red and blue. A red herd is a breeding and multiplier herd. It is subject to the strictest disease prevention regulations and the most intensive health checks. For example, the building must be situated at least 500 meters from any other pig herd. A red herd can only accept pigs that are delivered by caesarean section or from another red herd. Additionally, the new pigs must be kept in isolation for at least 42 days before they can be housed with the rest of the herd. Health checks are carried out by vets from the Danish Agriculture and Food Council. A blue herd is a production herd. The requirements for a blue herd are slightly less restrictive. For example, there are no isolation requirements, though isolation is recommended when purchasing breeding stock. The minimum distance between 2 pig herds must be at least 100 meters. Qualified vets carry out health checks on the herd. Clean and unclean areas must be kept separate for all SPF herds. Personnel must wear the correct workwear when moving through clean areas, and SPF regulations apply here. Clean areas can include barns and feed areas that are not separated from the piggery by a locked door. In addition, and this applies to all herds, all of the exits and entrances must be locked so that no one else can come into the piggery. Windows must also be closed. If they are used for ventilation, they must have a net. Ventilation openings and other openings must have nets. Doors to the entrance and to the loading area must have door signs marked with a label from SPF-System, indicating the herd's current health status. In general, other kinds of animals are not allowed in the piggery. So when you enter or exit, make sure that cats, dogs, mice or birds do not enter the herd, or in any brief period when the piggery is open to the outside. Cats can be in the herd only if the health control authorities have agreed to it. The cats must not be able to exit or enter the piggery. They must remain in the herd at all times. Medicine cabinets must be located in clean areas. All outer packaging must either be left well outside the piggery area or in the outer section of the entrance room. It is important that feed and bedding is correctly delivered into the piggery. feed and bedding must not be transported to the herd in pig transporters. Bulk feed and bedding must be delivered in closed trucks, and the delivery must be safe against infection. Big bales, or similar, must be safely stored and placed in the piggery. Use a mini skid steer loader or straw transporter between the barn and piggery, and unload carefully to prevent contamination entering the piggery. When using wood chip, we recommend you use only SPF-System approved suppliers. If the wood chip was supplied from countries outside of Scandinavia, it must be isolated for 48 hours before it can be used in the herd area. That was a little about the general requirements for a SPF herd. Did you understand it all? Good. Then let's go on to the rules about access for personnel. Entry to the piggery must always be via the entrance room. No one can enter the piggery if they have come into contact with pigs or herds that have a lower health status than their own herd in the last 12 hours. The entrance room must have two sections. An outer section that is independent of the herd area, where you can change and store your clothing and footwear, and an inner section that belongs to the herd area. The two sections must be clearly separated. You must change into the correct workwear, for example, boiler suit and boots, and you must clean your hands with disinfectant soap. Single-use disposable clothing, plastic coats and foot covers must not be used. Workwear boots and clothes must be available at all times. Visitors to a red herd must sign a visitor list before they can enter the herd area. The visitor list must always be available in the entrance room. The owner must keep complete visitor lists for up to a year after the last visitor date on the list. We recommend blue herds also use visitor lists. You must lock the door behind you every time you leave the herd area, be it for shorter or for longer periods. Remember to check the door is locked properly, just like Anna does. There are 4 categories of vehicles used in the SPF system. 1. SPF trucks. 2. Trailers for SPF pigs used when owners transport their own livestock. 3. Finisher trailers for transporting finisher pigs. 4. Conventional lorries, e.g. export lorries or abattoir lorries. Only SPF-approved transporters are allowed to transport the pigs to a herd or move them between sus joint herds. Pigs can also be moved by SPF pig trailers, but these must be approved by a vet. The herd's health status is automatically annulled with immediate effect if any other form of transport is used. SPF trucks are specially designed to provide pigs with the optimum protection from disease. The rules governing transport are strict, including loading and offloading, disease prevention, hygiene and general animal welfare. All SPF trucks are equipped with lift gates to ensure careful lifting and loading. SPF drivers are specially qualified and experienced, and they make sure all the regulations are strictly complied with. The SPF system is based on disease prevention. The hygiene of an SPF truck is an important part of the process. The driver thoroughly cleans and disinfects a SPF truck immediately after the last pig has been unloaded. Transport between the owner's herds can be carried out using the owner's own SPF pig trailer. This is called owner transport. The SPF pig trailer must comply with special SPF-System rules. For example, it must be closed and easy to clean, and ventilation openings must be covered with bird netting. The trailer front end must be closed to prevent any material thrown up by the tractor wheels from entering. SPF transporters or SPF pig trailers must be used to transport animals on public roads between sus joint herds. The SPF pig trailer must be cleaned and disinfected after use. An approved SPF pig trailer can be used to transport both livestock and finishers, though the trailer must always be isolated for 12 hours after it has been cleaned and disinfected. Finishers can be delivered using a finisher trailer. The requirements for a finisher trailer are not as wide-ranging as those for a SPF pig trailer. The essential requirement for a finisher trailer is that it must be easy to clean and disinfect after use. When pigs are moved into a finisher trailer, they lose their SPF health status and cannot be returned to the herd. Non-SPF trucks, typically finisher trucks or export trucks, are called conventional lorries or non-approved lorries. When pigs are moved to a conventional lorry, they lose their SPF health status and cannot be returned to the herd, including any pigs rejected by the driver. Anna is now ready to start her responsible job. But before we let her do that, we must look at two important things: the rules for offloading and loading pigs. Let's start with offloading. In the case of red herds, purchased pigs must be delivered to the isolation area and kept in isolation for 42 days. Animals coming from a sus joint herd or partial sus joint herd are exempt from this isolation requirement. While this is not mandatory for blue SPF herds, we recommend that you still isolate the purchased breeders because it significantly reduces the risk of disease being introduced. The isolation area must have a special entrance room where individuals change their clothes and wash their hands. The isolation area must be independent of all other areas. Therefore, it can only be accessed via the special entrance room. Remember, if you have been inside the isolation area, you must be isolated afterwards for at least 12 hours. So if there are no other personnel who can take care of tasks in the isolation area, it would be a good idea if you carried out the work there at the end of the day. The offloading ramp must be cleaned and disinfected before loading. The herd area must not be accessible during offloading. During offloading, the SPF driver must not enter the piggery and personnel must not enter the SPF truck. Once the pigs have been received, cleaning and disinfection must be carried out within 24 hours. Pigs from a SPF herd can be loaded in one of 5 ways. 1. Direct loading of weaners, breeding pigs, from a herd area to an empty SPF transporter. 2. Loading to a conventional, non-approved lorry with a finisher or livestock trailer. 3. Loading via a loading area. 4. Sectional loading of weaners or finishers. 5. Direct loading of weaners or finishers to a conventional non-approved lorry. The animals must only be directly loaded onto an empty, clean and disinfected SPF truck or to the herd owner's own approved SPF pig trailer. Direct loading from a blue SPF herd to an empty conventional lorry can be approved under certain conditions. The loading ramp must be cleaned and disinfected immediately before loading. The pigs are driven from the pens or piggery section out to the lorry via a serviceway or aisle. The driver must not enter the piggery and personnel must not enter the transporter. Rejected pigs can be returned to the piggery, even though they have been on a SPF truck or SPF pig trailer. They cannot be returned if they have been on a conventional, non-approved lorry. After the pigs have been loaded, the ramp must be cleaned and disinfected within 24 hours. Another way to load pigs is via a loading area. Normally it is finisher pigs that are loaded in this fashion, where abattoir trucks collect the pigs. The loading area must only house the pigs that are to be transported on the truck. The door between the loading area and the piggery must be closed and locked when the finisher truck arrives for loading. After the pigs have been loaded, the loading area must be cleaned and disinfected within 12 hours. It is the finisher truck driver who must drive the pigs from the loading area into the truck. Rejected pigs cannot return to the herd area. It is important that you are aware that personnel cannot enter the loading area during the loading and for at least 12 hours after the loading. If this happens, they must be isolated from the herd's piggery section for 12 hours. The loading area must be cleaned and disinfected after every loading. Cleaning must be done from outside. If a SPF truck already holds some pigs from another herd, loading must take place via the herd owner's own SPF pig trailer. If a conventional lorry already has pigs on it when it arrives, for example a finisher lorry, it is also recommended loading takes place via the SPF pig trailer or finisher trailer. The loading ramp must be cleaned and disinfected immediately before loading. The transporting of breeders or weaners from the herd area to a remote SPF herd location must be done using an approved SPF pig trailer. If dealing with finishers, you can use a finisher trailer or a SPF pig trailer. Remote loading, reloading must take place at least 100 meters from red herds and as far away as possible from blue herds. All of the loading facilities, that is, the loading area, the fold, and the ramp and transporter, must be cleaned and disinfected and placed under 12 hours isolation after loading is complete. Blue herd weaners, or finishers, can in some cases be directly loaded to a conventional non-approved lorry, but only if certain requirements are met. In principle, you must comply with the regulations that apply to the loading of animals to an approved SPF transporter. The loading ramp must be cleaned and disinfected before loading can begin. The driver must not enter the piggery, and personnel must not enter the transporter. Rejected pigs cannot return to the herd. The loading ramp must be cleaned and disinfected after every loading. Sectional loading of weaners or breeders can take place in some cases when certain special requirements are met. For example, an entire section must be emptied and none of the pigs can return to the piggery. Sectional loading can take place in one of two ways. 1. The driver collects the pigs in the section. 2. Personnel help to drive the pigs out to the truck. No matter which way the loading is done, it is important to ensure that all of the pigs in the section can be transported. So the pigs must be examined before the truck reverses to the loading ramp. The loading ramp must be cleaned. Sectional loading can take place in one of two ways. If the driver is to personally collect the pigs from the section, then personnel must leave the section first. The door to the herd area is locked from within the herd area. The section is now a loading area. The driver collects the pigs in the section that is now functioning as a loading area. If personnel are to help to drive the pigs out to the truck, they must do it this way. The door to the section is locked from within the herd area. The section is now a loading area. Personnel enter the section from outside, dressed in outdoor workwear. In this example, the personnel wear red workwear. They drive the pigs out to the truck. They leave the section via the ramp and can now change into the correct workwear in the entrance room and enter the herd. The section must be cleaned and disinfected after every loading, no matter which method is used. Cleaning must be done from outside. The section must be left to dry before any pigs are allowed into the section. The health of the pigs has absolutely the highest priority in every SFP herd. You have a special responsibility for the health of the herd and must always be extra vigilant for signs of changes in pig behavior or for any other sign of illness. If you discover symptoms of illness, tell your employer immediately, who will then contact the vet for further instruction. Here are some examples of what you should be especially vigilant about. Several pigs exhibiting loss of appetite is often a sign of illness. Coughing, especially constant coughing, i.e. more than 24 to 48 hours for an individual pig or several pigs at the same time. Signs of itching or asbestoid incrustation in the ears, throat or other areas. Lice crawling on the pigs. Crooked snouts. Sneezing or nosebleeds. Bloody diarrhea. Any signs of illness which you must report immediately to your employer. Newborn piglets that look weak or have an abnormally high death rate can be a sign of disease in the herd. Pigs that show signs of nervous disorder can also be a sign of disease. Anna has now completed her training concerning the most important rules for looking after a SPF herd, and is now well able to take on the duties of her responsible job at Gamborg. The Danish Agriculture and Food Council hopes that you will, just as Anna has done, get to know the rules by watching this video several times and learn all the important details. This way, you will become a valuable employee doing an important job.